Hi, it's Mike Stevenson here. Today in this video we're going to follow on from the video I did about unboxing the VS Code extension. We're going to this time take a look at Kent's article here. So Kent wrote this article and we're looking at the new integration environment, and then we'll look at business process tracking. So I may do that as a separate video. I guess we'll just see how this goes, and basically we're just going to walk through this article and go through the process of setting it up. So we've got the two announcements have kind of gone quite closely together here. So we've got integration environment and business process tracking, and I guess the key thing is business process tracking, I guess, depends upon the integration environment. So if we take a look at the integration environment, so it allows organizations to assemble their resources into logical groups. So we talked about this in a previous video I did about the idea where it's a bit like in Power Platform. You've got an environment with solutions inside it, and those solutions contain resources. So I think the strategy from the product teams to allow us to group integration resources together. So if you see here, we're talking about cross resources. So that's logic apps, APIs, and service bus, and we're guessing in the future there'll be other stuff. So it would make sense that things like functions would be in there. Maybe databases, Cosmos, something like that. But obviously that brings in all the other product teams to do stuff like that. So we also have business process tracking preview here, and then Kent's scenario here that he talks through is this one about the business outage. Don't quite know why I've got this bar here, but this power outage business process. So we're going to start looking at how we set this up. So we're down here in the prerequisites. So the first thing we've got to do is we've got to register a resource provider. So I'm going to go over to my subscriptions here, and I think I'm going to use my blogging Azure sponsorship subscription because it's got a few other logic apps and stuff in, and I think we're looking for resource providers, and then it was we're looking for one called Microsoft.integration spaces. So see that here, so that's not registered by default. And we click to register. There we go. So we've successfully registered that resource provider. So we'll tick that we've done that. So you should now see a notification that it's been registered. So we got that okay. So now we're going to go and create our integration environment. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a slight assumption that I'm going to need a resource group. So I'm going to go and create one here. I tend to put most of my demos in North Europe. Okay, so the first thing we just want to be a little bit wary of, so we've got integration service environment and integration environment here. So that would be very easy to get a bit confused there. The integration service environment, I think, is the old dedicated host for logic apps, which is on a deprecation path. So we really want the integration environment preview, which is the new stuff. I guess I'm assuming Microsoft probably had some internal discussions about the right name in here, because obviously it's very slightly different and they are very different things. But this integration environment's the one we want. So we'll go back over here. So we need a name, description. It's quite a funky little icon, that one there as well, if you look at that icon. Right, so integration environment. And North Europe's good. Now, one of the things I probably should have checked actually is how much does this cost to spin up. I'm not sure it really lists anything in here, so I'm guessing not very much. I would assume at some point there is going to be a cost for this. So that'll be one of my takeaways is here I think we need some indication of pricing for the demo. While we're doing this walkthrough, I think I'm going to, while that's spinning up, I'm just going to take a minute to just drop a WhatsApp to Kent and see if he's got any thoughts on the pricing. So we'll just pause the video for a second. Okay, so this looks like my my integration environment's been spun up. You can see here we've got the sort of access control. So looks like there's a role there for service admin. Logic app contributor. So interesting to just see a couple of the roles there. Excuse me. So we haven't assigned any applications or any resources yet. Okay, so we've done this bit. So the interesting bit here, maybe just to call something out in this article. So if I look at the name that Kent's chosen for his integration environment, City Power and Light Dry Run Blog. So the question maybe there would be that's a very specific name for that one use case, but I assume in an environment, let's say our company's Acme, would we have one integration environment called Acme, but I guess we'd have one for dev, one for test, one for prod. So in a real world scenario, we'd expect to have 3 integration environments. I assume that would be how it would work. And you wouldn't have like one for an application, something like that. But that'll just be, I guess that'll be design patterns and implementation details as this moves through from preview to production. So next we want to create an application that allows us to relate all of the resources that make up our power outage business process. So I guess we can probably build an app a bit like the one in Kent's one here. So to create the application, select the following steps: create new, name, description, and resources. So go to applications, create a new app. So I'm looking to add some resources. So let's pick a logic app. Let's pick this VX code one we did the other day. Okay, and then I guess we could, let's just for argument's sake, say we had APIM. Just going to pick a couple of sample things here. Right, just some random stuff. I guess my thought here when I see this bit would be, so I like this. Actually, I'm just gonna. So I think what I'm saying here is I like this. However, one bit I wonder is in here. So in here, when I look at these items, so my logic app here probably has, in the real world, it might have 10 workflows in it. Now, not all of these workflows might belong to this logical application. Maybe that, this really comes into the question about how many workflows do you put in a logic app? How do you split stuff for different use cases? So if I think of some of the ones we've done, it's feasible they might have ones that are like slightly bigger scope. And then again, the same's true with my API, where I've picked an API, but that API might have 100 operations on it, and I only care about 2 of them for this application. Whereas Service Bus, you've got it very granular here, where you can see I've just added 2 queues out of the Service Bus. So I've got very granular here, picking a queue, but here I've got an API rather than an operation, and here I've got an app rather than a workflow. So it'll be interesting to see what that means longer term. Like, do they need to go to the next level down for it to maximize the usefulness of it? Okay, so here we need an Azure Data Explorer instance. So I'm going to go and create one of those now. I think I might just I'll tell you what, let's just do this on the video, just so people can see what's involved. Okay, so dev test. So that's picking extra small, and I don't really want availability zones, I don't think. Let's see if we've got some notes here. So I was just taking a look back here. So if we look, if we open up the different SKUs, there's a couple of other options for dev tests that are available as well. If you notice the pricing over here on pay as you go, so that's $0.14 a month an hour. So I think that works out about $100 a month for the ADX instance. So we'll just kind of bear that in mind. I think that's going to be what the pricing is. So I'll probably not keep this demo around too long. So we'll manually scale that. I'm fine with. So streaming ingestion. So let me go back to Kent's article. I don't think it really mentions anything about the ADX. So let's just have a look for any mentions of Data Explorer. Right, Beans Data Explorer, if you know how we need to create one. Yeah, ADX prevention. Okay, so I think that should be on here. Yes, that's this bit here. So I think that it'd be quite interesting to get some guidance, I think, on things like these configuration settings and some of the pricing bits, and just the things that I should be thinking about. So my guess here is, when I look at this, so auto stop cluster after a period of inactivity. So hopefully that'll reduce my cost a bit, which would be a good thing. Enable purge allows to run purge commands The individual record tables, I guess I would want that on, maybe. Let's leave it off for now because it's a demo. Streaming ingestion, I'm going to leave the default, but I don't know whether that matters for Logic apps or not, but we'll leave that at the default. I think that's my guess would be that's intended for places where people have got an event hub ingesting into ADX. So security, we'll leave these defaults. My tenant only is fine. System assigned identity, yep, that'll do. We'll leave it public endpoint. I guess some customers eventually are going to be interested in private endpoints options. I'll leave diagnostics off for now. So we'll just create from here, I think. So hopefully that'll run pretty quick. So we're just catching back up here. So you can see my ADX is finished creating. Over here you can see my resource group. I've got my integration environment and my ADX in it. So have a quick look here. See it's running. So I'm just going to leave it, pretty much as is for now. So we'll go back to the create integration environment here, and I'm guessing I might need to go back. So I've got my resources. There's our ADX cluster. So I guess we need to create a database in there as well. So let me just have a quick look which this page is. Yeah, okay, so let's go and just create a database over in that ADX then. Guess I'll just leave that 90 days maybe. So if I'm looking at this, so my database is created there. If I, like how I'm interpreting what I'm seeing here is I've got my resources. So I pick my cluster here. So I'm guessing I could have a different database for each application maybe. So the question is, do we have a database per app on ADX, or do we have share DB across So do we have one database for each app, or do we share a database across apps? I'm going to assume that I can share one for now, and we'll revisit that later. And then tag stuff if we want to. So that looks like that would be my application. So I'm guessing it's just doing characters. All right, so I can't have spaces in here. So let's get rid of that. Let's test app. Got my resources. So repick this. So I guess being a bit picky, you could maybe have had some validation on that name at the start, unless I missed that earlier on. Right, so that looks like that should be creating our app there. Yeah, so here's our API. So that's the API. I'm just going to talk through this briefly, actually, just so I'm clear what I'm looking at here. Okay, so here we've got my APIM instance. This bit here is an API within that APIM instance. So when I look at the resources, I can see it's adding, again, that's the service bus namespace. These are two of the queues. And then that's my logic app, and that's one of the workflows. Quite a cool little icon there for the individual workflow. I like this. Hopefully Sandro can maybe add that to the Visio stencil, that separation of icons between the workflow and the logic app I quite like. So the question, like, we've got all these kind of parent resource and child resources, which is great. So if we go back to the app here, so we'll see we've got my new app. You can see I've got my resources in here, which is really good. It's good, nice that it's shown me the tiers here as well. Okay, so it's interesting when the application indicator here at the top sort of says it's like the logic apps in the app, but the queues and the API are. So that's cool. Okay, so let's go back to the article then. So we've got our ADX, that's good. We now have an application inside your environment, which is good. So we saw that, which is good. So we go create your business process, so we can click into your newly created application and create a business process that allows us to model the process. So from the left navigation pane, create new. Okay, I'll tell you what I think I might do actually, just to so I don't think we actually deployed this logic app previously, so I'm going to go and get that other one. So I'm going to just modify this logic app and deploy it while we're doing some stuff here. There's quite a lot of notifications popping up here. We'll assume they're all right. Right, so all I'm doing here, I'm just putting a part, like a message body I'm expecting to receive on that message. And then if I go to the compose, I'm going to just put this person's name here. So we'll take that name property. And then I think, if I remember right, that just returns it. So I'm going to just save this. And then I'm going to deploy two logic apps. Actually, that's quite interesting, that one. I didn't even spot that one at the top there. So I was thinking these are all the ones I have available and I can create new ones, and I completely missed the one that is at the top to make my life easier. So maybe there's a little bit of a UI thing there. Maybe it's also just user error and I'm not looking carefully enough. Right, so we'll let that go deploying. We'll jump back over to the article again. So we're going to create a business process over here. So we're in our application, go to business processes. We'll create a new one. So it's interesting here, I'm guessing we can have a list of business processes within this application. So that's quite cool. I guess we could have multiple workflows that do different things, and we could sort of see the process within that. So let's assume this is a customer search. I'll just call it customer search. I'll just keep it really easy. Okay, so we can't have spaces, which is a bit weird actually, because if it's business friendly, you know, I would have thought having a space would make sense, but I guess that's some URL related behind the scenes. I'll leave my description, and then we'll have customer ID as a string to be the business identifier. Identify a transaction. I don't know. That feels like if I use customer ID there, would that make sense? Maybe what I need is business identifier. Maybe I just need that as a unique item for ID. I don't know. I can't quite get my head around this business identifier, if I'm honest. It's almost like a transaction ID. So you're always going to have a unique ID, but why would it be anything other than ID or instance ID? Because customer ID or case ID to me feels like you might have multiple times that ran. And I think I talked about this in the previous video. But let's go and create that. So fail to create. That's probably because I was asking it about the customer search ID. Right, so business identifier is an important concept within business process tracking that allows you to uniquely identify a transaction. But you see that, so there the concept's not quite right, because order number, ticket number, case number, they could all be, to me, a lot of the times they could be used multiple times. So to me, this identifier is always really a transaction ID. Is what it feels like anyway at this point. Maybe that'll change as we use it more. So we should now see our created business process. So we have that pretty much here. Inside our business process, we can add stages to create data properties for each stage in the customer service power outage business process that was outlined above. We want to create 6 stages that represent our business process. For each stage, we want to define key business processes. So add a stage, description of problem. I'm just going to check my logic apps deployed. That was good. Okay, so let's add a stage. Search started. So we can't have spaces. It's quite annoying that actually. So let's pick our logic app. Got our stateful workflow, so let's pick our action. So that's quite cool. This jumped into here. Enter a unique ID to identify the transaction moving through. Enter a value here. Is other business processes. Right, so this lets me. So right, this is good where I sort of had that ID. Now, what I'm feeling like, it would be quite good here to use the logic app run ID as a transaction ID, maybe in this scenario. I guess or even the, like the distributed transaction ID. So what I think I'm going to do here, I'm going to go back to the logic app and I'm going to put another field on here called transaction ID. I'm going to save that. I'm going to deploy it again. And then in my tracking, I'm just going to go back a few stages. Wait till that's deployed, and then I'm gonna repick that property, I think. Actually, as a side note, I got a text back off Kent while we were doing the video, and Kent says for the preview, there's no cost for the integration account, but you will pay for the ADX instance that's used for the tracking data. So that confirms that. So that's good. That kind of helps us do proof of concepts and stuff. Although the ADX isn't the cheapest, but I guess if you stop it, you'll reduce the cost a bit. But remember, that's just for the preview. That might change later. Okay, so you can see that update for the logic app's done now. So I'm going to go back over to my customer search. So there we go, transaction ID shown up. That's quite nice. That was like, for some reason, I expected this to be some kind of caching and that just not show up yet. So I was quite pleasantly surprised there. Guess one little bit of feedback. It's not really obvious here how you populate that ID, because it just looks like you have to type something, but obviously when you click in it, it comes up there. So that's really nice. It's nice and slick actually as well. Define the properties you want your business to track. So I wonder if I can put, let's see, name. ID. Not quite sure how I populate the value here, but let's go and read the article and have a look. Create a stage. So there's a little bit here about these separators. I'm not sure, like, just feedback for any of the product team watching this. I'm not really sure like why you have to do that. I'm guessing there's some behind the scenes reason. But from a business user perspective, it kind of really seems a bit daft that you would really want there just to be plain language, so it looks like, you know, a proper sentence rather than like here. It kind of makes it look like a developer tool rather than a business tool, in my opinion. So that would just be a bit of a thought. Maybe it's a bit nitpicky, but just it looks better in my opinion. So the interesting bit here, what I'm not sure about, if you notice here, I don't see that value field on the stage, which I'm seeing if we look, sort of if I look, I don't know if I can move my little icon here. So if I look here, I'm not sure what that value field is over here. So maybe I'm missing something, but let's just go down the article a bit and see if it only captured timestamp. So I'm not sure I fully understand exactly how these properties get defined. What might capture timestamp at each stage? Stage is based on the. So I'm gonna make a guess here that these are properties in the message body, maybe. Let's go a bit further ahead. Right, so it sort of covers that a bit further ahead. So maybe I'm jumping ahead at this point. So let's just go down. I'll just add my stage first, and I'm just going to do a really simple one. We'll just do search complete. Okay, so that's quite interesting. I'm not sure if it quite would have followed what's happening here. So if I think that I've picked here for there, but then the business ID here, if you hover over it, I can't see it with my pen actually, but I'll take that off a bit. If you hover over here, this is actually referenced in the trigger body. So it's using that property from the other shape to do that correlation. So that's how it's kind of knowing which transaction to update, which is quite interesting. Again, properties here. Yeah, it doesn't probably. I'm going to leave the property off on that one. So we'll add our stage. So if we go a bit further down, automatic capture timestamp. So it's good. So I'm just going to do a simpler process here. The business process represents sequential stages, but it doesn't. We have recently added some more parallelism to add a branch. Click the plus between the two stages. So let's just have a little bit of a look at that. All right, so that would be kind of if there was a condition, you could go down here, I guess. Just try playing that out a little bit. So we could go. Yeah, so it gets. So we can nest at a few stages, which is quite cool. So not sure quite how I delete that stage actually. There we go. Let's go back into here now and see. Yes, that looks like it did before then. Show data source action. So I must admit, I'm kind of guessing that when I look at this action, HTTP action here, I'm sort of indicating there's properties on it that I'm going to pull in, maybe, is what I'm thinking, how they get populated. But so if we go further down, mapping here, data source. Right, so I think in Kent's article, he's just added all these stages first, and then he's kind of populating them later on, which is fine. Point in time for when the select an action at a point in time when the data properties will be collected and sent to Data Explorer. Right. We now need to provide a mapping between our business properties and where they can be found in our workflow, so we can take advantage of our designer token picker. Right, okay. Right, so I assume let's just save this for a minute. So I think this bit's the bit I'm missing here about how to populate those properties. So let me go back. Right, so maybe I've done this wrong. Right, so let's go here. All right, yeah, I can see what I've done. So what I probably should have done is in here, if I'd defined those properties before, I think I've defined them after I've picked the shape. So if I'd defined them before, I could have populated them just straight from here. So that should be name, that should be customer ID. So actually this is quite slick now that I know what I'm doing. So I think what I've done before is I've looked at them here and can't work out how to populate them. But if I'd actually put the properties there first, then I would have populated them when I selected this. And I think it's just the order that I've done it. So that's fine. We understand that now. So I think we've done this bit here is good. Particular problems business identifier, so we've done that. Once you map and process, save frequently. Once you map all the stages, you're ready to deploy. Deploy business process, you need to have access to the logic apps that have been used in the mappings. The reason that and create a tracking profile. So that there is a key thing. So if you're the BA defining it, so the interesting bit's going to be if you were the business analyst defining it and the logic apps already deployed. Obviously there's going to be a whole DevOps piece around this, but how do you do that mapping? You're going to need permission to the logic apps, and maybe you define the diagram and then the developer does the mapping, I would assume. So there's a little bit of a, that's kind of the old problem with BizTalkBAM, really, about whose role and responsibility was it to do each of the actions. So we're going to deploy these. Will go into artifacts, tracking subdirectory, ADX instance must be online. So this here is probably important if you're doing dev where your ADX is going to go offline because you want to reduce the cost. Not provided, blah, 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 blah. So that's good. So let's go and deploy this now. So I guess what we're saying here is if you had an existing table, we could do that. So each business process tracking, business process is going to go into its own table, I guess. Be interesting to see what that means when at bigger scale, when people are like having quite a lot of processes, can you query cross table in ADX and stuff? I guess if we go here, we probably should see a table now, I would assume. Yes, there's our customer search table. You can see we've got some fields here as well, which is good. So I'm guessing correlation ID probably is that business identifier, I would guess. And then we've got properties and metadata. So we'll have a look in here under the hood actually after we're done. So that's deployed. And I guess the thing we want to do now is do a test call to that logic app. So here's our logic app. Go to our workflow. So I'll get my URL here. I've got a Postman kind of already sort of half set up for this, which is good. So I've specified a content type header. I've got my name, my ID, and I have a feeling I also called it transaction ID. Right, so we'll just send that and see what happens. So thanks, Mike, this works. So if we go to 2, transaction 2, and another one for Luciano. So you can see we get our response here. So if we go over to customer search, so we've got our business process. So that would be the designer. So I'm going to jump ahead here. I'm going to go and actually read the article, which is a bad habit of mine. So we now have an active business process in the deployed state. So we're looking for this bit here, which is good. Within our transactions, click on the table with a magnifying glass. Right, so I think that's that here. It's a little bit hidden away there, I guess. So we should be able to see some transactions. Oh, and we've got 2 here. That's really good. We click on one. So here's the values of populated name, my customer ID 1, search complete, which I don't think we actually populated anything there. So we've just got those properties. And I think that's probably it, really, looking at it. I guess, so we're up and running there. I guess I'm going to just play around with a couple of things. So what I'm going to do then is on this, let's see how we're going to do this. So let's see if we have a parse JSON Because, I mean, for me, the most obvious thing I'm going to want to be able to get is something like that. So we want the run ID, definitely. Grab a schema. And just return that in the response. Right, so I'm going to just deploy that again. And then I'm going to modify my business process and see if we can promote that ID right at the end. Because obviously if I pull it in off my receive action, I'm not going to get that run ID probably there. Actually, I wonder if there's another way I could do that. We'll deploy this first, and then we'll try see the ways we could do that. I think every stage in that workflow, I'm probably going to want to know what the workflow and what the run ID was, so I can get back to the logic app if I need to. Just while that deployment's happening, I just want to elaborate on that that point I was making there. So how I see this working is, so we've got our integration environment here, and then we've got our business process, and then we've got our support person over here. They're coming in, they're going to look at a business process. That's going to have the logic app pushing events up to it. They're going to see, in my case, transaction ID 1, customer ID 1. They're going to get a bit of a flavor of what's happening, but then they're going to, if they can't sort their issue out, they're going to escalate to a developer, and a developer's going to need to come down to the logic app to see the lower level of detail. So go from the business view to the technical view. This is where the business view needs to be able to tell me which logic app out of my 100 that I've ran I need to look at. So that's the importance of that piece. So I'm going to see how we can get that run ID in the best way. So logic app just deploying at the minute there. Hopefully that'll just be a second. Actually, as a test, what I'm going to do is after deploying it, because my deployment here doesn't include that business process, so it'll be interesting to see whether that's still on the in the deployed state after I've deployed this code. So deployment's just happening here. Right, so that's successful. So if we go back to the business process here, so I guess the first thing to do is let's just go 3. So we'll do Kent this time. Right, so you see the change we made in the logic app spitting out our run ID. So we go to the tracking table here. Right, and that's a nice little tick in the box there. So we made a change to the logic app, deployed it, didn't change the business process, but the business process is still capturing the data, which is good. So we'll just give that a chance to come up. I'll just refresh that. Well, I hope it's coming up. There we go. So Kent and customer 3. So the question is, how do we get that workflow ID in? So what I'm wondering is, in here, right, I need to populate a workflow ID. So we've got our data source there. So if I go, actually, let's see if we can do this on the start even. Right, so we save that. We'll go show data source. The question is, yeah, I was wondering about this. So I can actually just populate that. Yeah. So any members of the product team watching at this point, this is really nice. I really like this. So I didn't have to actually send a bit of data up. I'm just pulling this straight in from the properties here, or from the expressions. That's good. So big thumbs up. I guess I could use that in some cases as that business ID as well. Again, that's really nice. So if we save that, deploy. So that's successful. So we go back here. We'll change it to customer 4. Do Wagner this time. Right, go to our table here. Right, so that's interesting. So I'm guessing we may have the data. So it could be a timing issue. We'll give it the benefit of the doubt that it could be. Let's just check what's happening here. So we've got the run ID, but we didn't actually end up using that, which was quite interesting. So at this point, I'm not sure why that's not showing up. I guess we'll just check this table here. Yeah, so it looks kind of, when I look at this, it's looking a lot like we haven't actually received anything from Wagner's event. So that to me sort of says the business process tracking missed that event from the looks of it. So what I'm going to do is we'll just send that again, but we'll move it to 5 now, just for tracking purposes. So we want to check and see I haven't missed. Maybe that's maybe the way I did that workflow IDs are not supported scenario. Use the tracking properties to that stage. Right, considerations. So supported stateless is not supported. Speed versus probably right, speed. Turns only in this here. Right, so don't feel like we're doing anything we shouldn't there. So I'm going to just do a little bit of troubleshooting on this and just see if we can figure this out. We're definitely not seeing Wagner appear in this table. So the question is, maybe it's the way I configured that property. So I'll pick that up with as feedback for the product team, I guess, and see if there's something we can do with that. So I guess if I take that workflow ID out, I'm going to put so what I'm going to do this time, instead of doing it off the expression, I'm going to try doing it off the parse JSON where I had the run ID. So that bit I'd really likes to do it off the expression, but maybe that was the problem. So we've got it set on the complete now instead. So we've deployed, and so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to run that again. Yeah, so we've got Wagner that time. So I'm expecting if I go back here now, so we go here. Yeah, so maybe the problem was just using that that expression. So see, we've got Wagner there. We've got the workflow ID, so that lets me work out which logic app it is. So my guess would be it was using that expression shape. Maybe it's not supported at the moment, so I'll ask the product team about that and see if there's a problem. But otherwise, I think we've pretty much got through all of this. I guess the one bit of feedback maybe is I'm not sure how I would troubleshoot in that scenario where the logic app still ran, but there was nothing in business process tracking. There's nothing here to really show me what went wrong. I'm gonna guess if we go to the log stream, there might be a bit of data. Maybe even in App Insights there might be something. So I'm just going to see if I can spot anything in that App Insights instance that I've got. So if we go here, I think we should be in my... I'm not sure if I might have got this configured with different App Insights. I don't know. We'll take that as an offline thing to look into. But generally, we've got that working. I guess there's just a question of why that time it was the expression it didn't work. But if I moved it to run off a parse JSON shape, it worked fine. Just to recap, the way I tried to do it was using the expression. So I'm going to just put that workflow here. And then in the data source bit, this is where I try to populate it using the expression instead. Just try that again actually and just see. Ooh, who should we pick now? We'll have Sandro. And 6 is the ID. Yeah, it doesn't seem to like that. Doesn't seem to like that expression, does it? So, want to chat about. But otherwise, thank you for listening to this video. I'm hoping that gave people a few ideas about how to get started with the new Logic app integration environment and business process tracking. You can see actually here, just noticing. We look in the ADX data, so there's a lot of stuff we can start querying out of here actually. So this is where things like Power BI start coming into play. Actually, we've got some process name, flow ID. I guess that's the run ID here. So it looks like there's plenty of stuff we can use here. I mean, the big thing that's missing is message bodies, but there's loads of properties in here, and it's definitely a way of giving visibility to what's going on. I guess the only thing that's a little bit of a shame is I only get the business identifier, and I can't get a few extra properties in this grid that would really help, because ID 5 or case ID, but it would be useful to see, like, you know, in this search case, the name and stuff. But thanks for listening. Hope you enjoy the video. Please subscribe to the channel and keep up to date with everything Azure integration.